Josiah with Rockwell Farms here. I wanted to go over 5 main reasons your fruit trees are not producing. Here at the nursery, we get this question quite a bit. Hey, I got fruit trees. I've had them for a couple years now. They're still not producing. What am I doing wrong? What do I need to add? Are they not old enough? So today I'm going to go over those 5 reasons they're probably not producing fruit. Reason number 1, age or maturity of your fruit trees. So now typically for fruit trees, from seedling stage, they can usually take anywhere from 3 years to 10 years to produce fruit. And so depending on the variety that it is, maturity is a very important part, because if the tree's not, it's kind of like tree puberty, they're not going to start producing fruit until they're a little bit more mature in their age. So that's the first one to keep an eye out for. Reason number 2 is pollination problems. So this is very, very important. It's a very common problem with why your fruit trees are probably not producing. So pollination is key. So like on your apples, there are different varieties that will pollinate other varieties. And so it also is based off of the number of trees that you have. So for instance, like the Arkansas Black, it's such an amazing apple, but it's a terrible pollinator. So if you just have an Arkansas Black on its own planted without a pollinator for it, another variety to pollinate that tree, you're probably never going to see fruit. So pollination is also key. Also, even if it's self-pollinating, you will still do much better having a second tree of that same kind. So if, apples to apples, oranges to oranges, literally. So you just want to make sure that you have a pollinator for that tree. For instance, also on our peaches, most of our free stone are self-pollinating that we sell here at the nursery. But if they're not close enough to another pollinator, you won't get as good of a yield. And so you might get a yield, but it might not be what you were hoping for, simply because there wasn't enough pollination going on. Most of your pollination happens from wind, but it can also happen from things like insects like bees and that sort of thing. And so pollination is key to make sure that you get good fruit. Reason number 3, you're probably not getting fruit on your fruit trees. This one is a super common one, but it's actually a lack of nutrients or too many nutrients. And so again, this is a super common problem. So you have your NPK, which is your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And so if that's out of whack, that can certainly cause to the contributing factor you're not getting fruit. But more so than that, it's a lack of calcium or zinc in your soil. And so calcium is important because without calcium, you can get things like flower fall, or the fruit doesn't set right. You might get fruit on there, but it starts to rot out. It's more susceptible to diseases and fungus because of low calcium. But more so than that, it's zinc. So zinc is very important in your fruit trees. It is a driving factor for production in your fruit trees, because it also, without zinc, your hormones in the tree aren't going to work properly. The tree won't be able to use nutrients properly. And so it's very important that your zinc is in the soil. Here in Northwest Arkansas, we have a higher pH, so it's a little bit more alkaline. So where you have more alkaline or higher pH in your soil, typically zinc is kind of somewhat missing out of your soil. And so by getting the zinc back in there and replenished, that's going to help you right along. You can get soil tests at home, where you can send them into a lab, or you could just do the at-home kit where you can actually test it at your house. But that is number 3. Reason number 4, this is also another very common one, is diseases or pest problems in your fruit trees. So when your tree has a disease or a fungal problem or pest problem, what can happen to your fruit trees is your fruit trees can actually go into a stress response. And it's kind of like a survival mechanism that your trees have. And so because they're under stress, they'll actually drop their fruit, and you won't get fruit on them that year because the tree is actually going into survival mode, because the tree would rather survive rather than, survival is more important rather than reproduction in the tree. That's reason number 4. Reason number 5, and this one super common, and it's one that we don't think about a lot or enough, Sometimes I've even forgot that this is a really important one, but it's weather conditions. So I've broken this up into two parts. The first part is a late spring frost. Okay, so if we have a late spring frost or somewhat of a late freeze, what can happen, especially if the tree is in flower stage, is that flower can fall. So now again, without the flower, you don't get pollination. Without pollination, you don't get fruit. And so it's very important part of that. But also another side, your second part of that is chilling hours. So most all fruit trees have a required amount of chilling hours. You know, your apples need more chilling than your peaches, but they have a certain amount of chilling hours that are required for that tree to be happy and to go into production. So if we have a longer winter or we have a shorter winter, this can also, depending on what variety of fruit tree you have, can be a driving factor to why you're not getting fruit.